Now, sometimes hope can be used in more of a fluffy term, such as, oh, well, just hope for the best, or, oh, I really hope that my favorite restaurant opens up soon. Now, tonight, we're not going to be talking about hope used in a fluffy way, because hope isn't fluffy, right? There are two key strengths about hope that I want to encourage you ladies with tonight. So strength number one, hope is an anchor. Hope is an anchor. In Hebrews 6 verse 19, it says, we have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. Now, how many of you ladies have either been on a cruise ship or you've seen a cruise ship, right? Maybe quite a few of you. When I used to live in New York City, I would often go for runs down the Hudson River, and that's also where the big cruise ships would come and dock so the passengers could go explore Manhattan. So when I was running and I would see a big cruise ship coming on, can you expect, what would be one of the first things that they would do with the cruise ship as it comes up to shore? They actually do two things. First thing is they have these big ropes that they tie to a dock, and then they drop the anchor. Now, the reason why they connect to the dock and drop the anchor is because they know that when they do that, that cruise ship will not move. Now, could you just imagine what would happen if like the captain didn't decide to drop the anchor? Because what you would most likely see eventually is this large cruise ship just drifting down the shoreline or even potentially out to sea. Now, the captain knows that the ship needs to stay strong, firm, and secure. The ship needs an anchor. You see, ladies, if we are not anchored in hope, we will be anchored to something else. God, the King of the heavens and the universe, who made everything into creation, did not create you, he did not create me, he did not create us to be anchored to disappointment, anchored to discouragement, anchored to insecurity, anchored to anxiety, anchored to politics or the government, anchored to the CDC, right? We're not meant to be anchored to those things. No, he created you to be anchored to hope in him, because God is the only thing that will not move. And now if you think about it, what are the times in your life where you drifted away from God and from faith? Because with those cruise ships, what would make them drift away is not having an anchor. It doesn't cause a huge catastrophic storm to drift away. It just is caused by not dropping the anchor. And it's the normal motions of life that can make us drift away. So such as skipping church again on a Sunday because you just don't feel like it, or deciding once again to not join a small group, or maybe letting anger or irritability simmer inside of you. You see, the normal motions of life are what make you drift, which is why we need to have hope as our anchor. Because if hope is our anchor, it'll keep our souls strong, secure, and firm. So that's the key strength number one about hope, is that hope is an anchor. Key strength about hope number two, hope is gritty. Hope is gritty. Now, what is grit? Grit, the recipe for grit is two things. It's passion and it's perseverance. Grit basically means you are not a quitter. When a setback comes up in life, you don't just lay down and die. You learn to pick yourself back up and keep going. And if you think about it, faith at its core is the substance of things hoped for. So you can't have faith without hope. Now, having hope doesn't mean that, you're never going to have difficulties in life, of course, but it means that when difficulties come, your hope will be strong and gritty enough that you do not give up. Abraham, who is one of the patriarchs of the Bible, he went through multiple moments in his life when all seemed completely hopeless. So for example, Abraham, he totally struggled believing in God's purpose for him. Have we not all struggled in that as well, right? We struggle in knowing God's purpose for us. Abraham, he also struggled in God's promise that he was going to have children. And in fact, when he felt like he had waited long enough and children didn't happen, he actually slept with his handmaid and had a baby with her. Talk about scandalous, right? He was in a hopeless place and was desperate and wanted to take action of his own. When Abraham and his wife Sarah did finally have a baby, they were 100 years old when they had Isaac. Ladies, like currently, the geriatric age for pregnancy is 35. And Sarah was 100. So before that, they were in a pretty hopeless state. Also, when Isaac, their firstborn, was born, God told Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac. Now, that was just a test. That didn't actually happen, but still, could you imagine that? Talk about feeling hopeless, right? So Abraham himself experienced multiple hopeless moments in his life. But in Romans 4:18, listen to what it says about Abraham, because I think we can learn a lot from this. It says, when everything seemed hopeless, Abraham believed anyway. He believed anyway, deciding not to live on the basis of what he saw he couldn't do, but on what God said he would do. And so he was made father of multitude of peoples. God himself said to him, "You're going to have a big family, Abraham." So God can make supernatural things happen. To experience his supernatural goodness, even when it seems like all the hope in the world is gone, we need to have gritty hope, just like how Abraham did. See, Abraham was significantly blessed for having his hope in God's promise. And ladies, you will be blessed as well if you continue to have hope as your anchor, and if you have gritty hope in God's promises over you.